Welcome to an enlightening podcast from IslamPodcasts.com. We encourage our listeners to please comment and let us know how we can grow in our knowledge to better serve our community. Please remind your family and friends to also visit IslamPodcasts.com for engaging discussions on current events, Islamic guidance, Quran, tafsir, seerah, and much more.
الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم من اهتدى فإنما يهتدي لنفسه ومن ضل فإنما يضل عليها ولا تزر وزيرة وزر أخرى وما كنا معذبين حتى نبعث رسولا صدق الله العظيم. In this ayah, Allah Azza wa Jal is reminding us, and the meaning of the ayah is, whosoever chooses to be guided is only for their own good. And whosoever chooses to go astray, it is only to their own loss. No soul burdened with sin will bear the burden of another. And we would never punish a people until we have sent a messenger. And Allah Azza wa Jal mentions in another place in Surah An-Nisa, وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ بِكُمْ رَحِيمًا. And do not kill yourselves. Indeed, Allah has always been bestowing of mercy upon you. The reason I picked these ayat, and inshallah we'll see, is because of an incident that happened a couple of days ago in Allen, Texas. And most of us probably aware of it through social media and the news. What happened there, where a Muslim members of the Muslim family, not only they kill the parents, a sibling, and the grandmother, and then those two brothers killed themselves as well. It was a shock and a very sad story. And to sit here and to discuss why those young men, and from what the news shows, very intelligent men from the dunya perspective for sure, and they ended up doing an action that not only was destructive for themselves, but for many others as well. And it will be incorrect of me to just judge them even. Because first of all, whatever the media portrays, it's very difficult to tell what the media is saying, how much of it is true and how much of it is not true. It's very easy to just reiterate what the media has mentioned about the family. But whatsoever the case was, at the end of the day, there are 6 members of the family are no more in this dunya. And before I go into the issue of the causes and what should we do and should it be our own concern and how to avoid these things, I will just talk about some of the numbers so things are in perspective. Because it's important to know, is it an outlier or we are talking about some sort of a abnormal norm exists within the people. So I pulled up some of the numbers, and they are not in general from CDC or the National Institute of Mental Health and WHO. So according to one of the numbers which is mentioned by the CDC about 2018, there were over 48,000 people in the United States who committed suicide. 48,000 plus people. And if you look at these numbers, that's about 5 to 6 people die every hour by committing suicide in the United States. Which means, if altogether we're spending about an hour for the Salatul Jum'ah, during that time, 5 to 6 people would have committed suicide, which is about one death every 11 minutes or so. And that's about the ones who are successful. Going to 2019 numbers, about 1.38 million people who attempt to commit suicide. And that is, while we have started the khutbah, probably about 10 people have already committed or tried to, attempted to commit a suicide. And the number is outrageous across the world actually nowadays. About 800,000 people commit suicide on a yearly basis. And that number, the thing that really astonished me about the United States numbers was that number include about around 600 young children from 10 to 14 years of age. They commit suicide. 10 to 14 years. Not to normalize this. This is a disaster. This is one of the saddest things that you can read. 15 to 24, the age of 15 to 24. Over 6,000 young men and women, they commit suicide. And then about 8,000 from 25 to 34. And altogether, as I mentioned, this number was taken from over 48,000 on a yearly basis. And actually this number is continuously increasing. And when I was talking about this age group of 10 to 34, for them, this is the second leading cause of death. And the first one is actually unintentional injuries. So it has nothing to do with any kind of a mental issues or the way they were driving or the way somebody else was driving the car they were sitting in. These are the actions taken by these young men, talking about 10 to 34. And by the way, majority of them are male, unfortunately. The causes are given many. Sometimes it's said as mental illness, family history, physical or sexual abuse, losses, aggressive behavior, or being bullied because the children are, or young men or women, they've been bullied because of the way they look or how successful they are in this dunya. They made it or not, whether it's in the school or in the job market, or if the layoffs are happening and causing the people to take their lives rather than leaving this world than to live in the misery. Now, all this said so, if you pay attention to all those things, these are the things are not, most of the time, are not because of just they're learning these things from their homes or from their schools or anything like that. Rather, there's a system out there which is promoting these kinds of thoughts as a success for you. What kind of school you get into, what kind of a job you get, or who you get married to, male, female, because there's another thing has started off. There's a huge rise in the suicide among the LGBTQ, whatever that is. So, all those things have been promoted actually, these thoughts of success have been promoted on a systematic manner. This is not just happening here and there and outliers among the people. Rather, the system which is calling the people into a split brain kind of a mentality. That you have your spiritual being separate from your political being. Your spiritual life has nothing to do with your real life that you go and live among the people with. And for that, we are bounded by the man-made laws. So somebody else is thinking for us what is right and what is wrong for you based on his or her experiences, rather than going back to Allah Azza wa Jal, the creator of heavens and the earth and everything in between. The one who knows everything, the one who knows what does it mean by what is halal and what is haram from the perspective of all the knowledge that requires to make sure what is right and wrong, who is unbiased, who is independent of anybody's needs. That's the only law, that's the only right and wrong that can be in the absolute term, and that can only come from Allah Azza wa Jal. And today, when I mentioned about the family which was Muslim, who have came across this murderous suicidal act, and many of the social media imams in the masajid, they're discussing that we must discuss this in the masajid. Yes, we should discuss that, but we should discuss also not just go to call the helplines, or go to the doctors, or go do this and that. Yes, we can do that to save many of these things, but we also have to go back to the root cause of it. Why the Muslims are dealing with this today now, while not in the past. And even among the Muslims, by the way, the numbers are still very small compared to the other communities and the other nations and the nationwide. For example, in Russia, it's about 31 suicides per 100,000. South Korea, 26.9%. And same thing we know about other leading nations in the world. Compared to that, look at Afghanistan, look at Syria, look at Iraq, the places which are war zones. Their numbers are like this. In Syria, it's 1.9 per 100,000. Iraq, it's about 4.7. And so on and on. Actually, Iraq is 4.7 is Afghanistan. So these are the nations which are going through, they are the war zones. But there is still some Islamic norms are there. So why we are saying these things are happening among the Muslims now, especially in the West? Especially in the West. It reminds me of the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The hadith says, لَتَتَّبِعُنَّ سَنَنَ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ شِبْرًا بِشِبْرًا وَذِرَاعًا بِذِرَاعٍ حتى لو دخلوا في جحر ضب لتبعتموهم. The hadith says, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that my nation will follow the previous nations, handspan by handspan, and arm length by arm length. And if they enter into the lizard hole, the nation will also fall in the lizard hole. And the Sahaba asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, قُلْنَا يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ الْيَهُودُ وَالنَّصَارَى. Rasulullah said, فَمَنْ? Was asked, is it the Yahud and Nasara you're saying that we will be following? And Rasulullah said, yes, who else? Now, why did I bring this up? Because today, unfortunately, we are adopting the very same ideologies that the Yahud and Nasara are promoting worldwide, which is the secularism, which is separation of religion from the state, or capitalism. Since we are adopting those things, hence we are also seeing the very same fruits that these ideologies are presenting. Hence we see that we are talking among the Muslims today as well. How can we take care of these issues? Because now we have the same trend when it comes to raising our families. So our children will be successful if they can make the most money out of this game. And they can be successful in the universities, successful to get the best jobs. If they cannot do that, then they're not successful. Why we are pressuring our kids this way? You have to be a doctor, or you have to be an engineer, or you have to be this, you have to be that. Because of the very same mentality that we are carrying, that this is the way that you can be successful in this dunya. This is the way you can make the most capital out of this. Hence we come in the same matrix, if you want to call it, of capitalism, where the people who are successful are the ones who have the most capital. And we are ending up seeing the same results. How many of we have to really go back and think, the one who are parents. Go back and think. How angry do we get if a kid is not getting good grades? Rather than thinking of that, is he successful in front of Allah Azza wa Jal on the Day of Judgment or not? Or how many of things we really get angry, or we have any concern if our kids, or even ourselves, missing our salahs even, the basic necessities, basic obligations in Islam. If a kid misses an exam, there will be disaster in the house. If a kid misses a Fajr, it's not a problem, isn't it? Aren't we the one who are really giving the priorities to our own children? And remember that we are all accountable in front of Allah Azza wa Jal for raising our families. Again, I want to make sure that we don't take this out of this talk, that by any means I am blaming or anything about what happened in Allen, Texas, about that family. That is between them and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We ask for the forgiveness for their family. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on them. But we have to think about ourselves. Because Allah Azza wa Jalla says, Ya ayyuhal ladina amanu, qu anfusakum wa ahlikum nara. O you who believe, protect yourself and your families from the fire. وقودها الناس والحجارة عليها ملائكة غلاد شداد. For which the fire, for which the fuel is the mankind and the stones. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed the malaika, angels who are severe. لا يعصون الله ما أمرهم, and they do not disobey what they have been commanded. ويفعلون ما يؤمرون, and they do what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded. So when we have the families that we are raising, we better think ourselves, are we really raising them? The family that we have, are we raising them in a manner that they are the ibadullah, they are the slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they look at the life from the perspective of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to look at. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ لِلَّهِ يَعْبُدُونَ. That we have not created mankind and jinkind but to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but to worship Allah, but worship me, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in this ayah. Is that how we are raising them? Because this is a test for us. It's not only to look at the children to remind them of بِالْوَالِدَيْنَ إِحْسَانًا, that do ihsan, do goodness with the parents, and do not say even off to the parents. Yes, the children have to know that as well. It's not the issue of only that the parents are raising the children in a manner that they are successful in this dunya and akhirah from the perspective of just for them. We have to remind them what are their dues on the parents as well. Don't think of it that the parents, they raise the children and then the children will not even think about what's going to happen to them in their old age. And they leave them on the side. Oh, nowadays, now the Muslims will have to start building their old homes as well, as somebody has suggested. Now within Chicagoland, we see these kind of things happening. Instead of the children taking care of the parents, now throw them into the old houses. At least they can communicate with each other, the old people. And the reason that we are seeing this failure in the family structure is because now we have started, unfortunately, looking up to the man-made laws. And the success for ourselves is if we can be successful in that man-made law structure system or the life system that exists out there. This is why we see left and right, everybody is proposing how to become a good citizen and go and vote and participate so we can get your share from this current system. Instead of us being the ones who be leading the mankind, telling the people what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from them and us all together, what we're doing is we are trying to get the share of the pie that the kufr system is presenting to us. We have the mercy from Allah Azza wa Jal. And this mercy, or message of the mercy, has to be taken to the mankind. And it has to be taken as a whole. Not parts and bits here and there. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا ادْخُلُوا فِي السِّلْمِ كَافَّةً وَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا خُطُوَاتِ الشَّيْطَانِ إِنَّهُ لَكُمْ عَدُوٌّ مُبِينٌ. O you who believe, enter into fold of Islam completely and do not follow the footstep of the shaitan, because he is a clear enemy. So anything other than the system of Islam from Allah Azza wa Jal, if we are thinking that we can get any success from there, this is our mistake. Because anything other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's message is the deviation, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, that anything besides the haqq is the dalala, is the deviation. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the guidance to lead not only ourselves and our families, but to the mankind towards how to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. Podcasts on current events, Islamic guidance, Quran tafsir, and seerah are available at islampodcasts.com, as well as on iTunes. Rate, review, and comment, and let us know how we can grow in our knowledge to better serve our community. Please subscribe, share, and tell a friend about islampodcasts.com.